Hey, this is Autumn. Normally, I'm on here introducing the Vision for Life podcast. Today, in place of the Vision for Life podcast, we are featuring another podcast that Fellowship Denver is producing and sharing this summer called No Quitting the Home Team. At least, I think that's what it's called. If you listen to the first episode, you'll see that the title was in discussion, being contemplated, but I'm pretty sure if you look it up, that's what we've landed on. One of the many things that I love about working at Fellowship Denver is our staff team. We have a lot of fun. We work hard. We're committed to our Fellowship Denver family. And we take the gospel and God's word seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. By far, though, the best part of being on this sort of team is the sharing of life in a way that promotes authenticity. And what I mean by that is we work hard to be honest, to make space for vulnerability, to share difficulty, share real things that are going on in our lives. But every member of our team is committed to engaging the gospel in a way that actually changes the way we think, live, show up at work and in our families and in life every day. And I know that my experience of our team didn't just happen by accident. That tone, that invitation into authenticity, the presentation of a life lived consistently, a belief that makes a difference, we have picked up on that. Our team has developed that ability to exist together in this way because it has been modeled for us really well. One of our founding pastors, Dave Moreland, and his wife, Renee, are sharing themselves really in this podcast that we're going to host here on the Vision for Life platform today, the one that I mentioned earlier. It is specifically about marriage and for married couples, but I would encourage any of our listeners to listen to this episode today and the subsequent ones as well. There's a 4-part series, and what you'll experience if you listen to this episode and the others is that same invitation into authenticity that I described earlier. Dave and Renee exude this sort of warmth and genuineness, and that is not an act. It is the way that I experience them. They still are working on themselves, their marriage, desiring to grow, both individually as followers of Jesus and together as a married couple who can demonstrate a very specific sort of love that points everyone around them to Jesus and invites everyone around them into this sort of life and relationship, one that celebrates well together, one that laments well together, one that enjoys the really simple things in life, celebrates our uniqueness, our weirdness, and desires to grow and learn. I believe you will hear all of that. That was my takeaway from listening to the episode. If you want to find the subsequent episodes, today we're featuring episode 1, but 2, 3, and 4 can be found on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or always they will land first in our Fellowship Denver app. You can find the audio for these episodes there as well. We'll return next week with our regular Vision for Life content. For this week, we hope you enjoy spending some time with Dave and Renee and listening to this episode of No Quitting the Home Team.
Hey everyone, Jesse here, producer of the Vision for Life and No Quitting the Home Team podcasts. I wanted to give a quick disclaimer before we roll this first episode of No Quitting the Home Team and follow up on something Autumn mentioned, in that while this is a podcast designed and recorded for married folk, you don't actually have to be married to gain wisdom or insight from Dave and Renee's conversations. However, they do cover a broad range of subjects pertaining to marriage, specifically sexual intimacy. And so if you are single and particularly sensitive to that topic, or if you are listening at home or in the car with your kids around, we wanted you to know that that subject would come up occasionally and give you fair warning. So with that in mind, we hope you are blessed by and enjoy this first episode of No Quitting the Home Team. You make known to me the path of life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a podcast on marriage. My name is Dave, and I'm here with my wife, Renee.
Hello.
And we are so excited to start this podcast. Why are we doing this podcast? Well, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we want marriages to thrive. Right now, marriages are struggling, and we hate to see that. Renee and I, we hate it when our marriage is struggling, and we don't want to see marriages struggle. So we wanted to have a podcast dedicated to helping marriages, strengthening them, helping them to thrive, to get better. And we want to do that while having fun at the same time.
Yeah, I think during the pandemic, we had family members and friends and neighbors whose relationships and marriages were just really struggling. And I think Dave and I had many conversations about how we could help and how we could support and bolster people in their relationships. And so we kind of started batting around this idea of doing a podcast, and we just kept talking about it and tinkering with the idea, and it came to fruition. So I think our hope is that wherever you find yourself after probably one of the more stressful years that any of us have experienced, that you could listen to this and be encouraged, maybe laugh a little, take some nuggets of wisdom and apply them to your own relationship so that you're encouraged to keep at it.
Every summer at Fellowship Denver, we usually offer some kind of marriage enrichment. We've had classes offered, we've had retreats. And this summer, based on kind of the conversations that we've had, we just decided, hey, let's do this podcast. Opportunity for Renee and I to be kind of open, vulnerable about our own marriage, and to help, hopefully, other couples deal with their stuff in a healthy way in the process.
And also, for those of you who call Fellowship Denver your church home, it's just a way to get to know us a little bit better and reconnect with us, since so many of you we haven't seen in a long time. So
that's right. And Renee is usually in a social setting. She's usually always front and center. Mm-hmm. She cannot wait to be on the stage. Mm-hmm. You know, she's always up front. And so, if you know her, you know that I'm just
dripping
kidding.
With sarcasm.
Yes. So it really is, I think, particularly fun for people to get to know you, Renee. Because they see me all the time, but they really just want to know who you are. And this is an opportunity for them to do that.
Yeah, so a little bit about us as a couple. Who are we? Who are we, Dave?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm throwing you the
okay,
the
yeah.
lob
So
here.
okay, here's some basic sort of info about us. We've been married almost 21 years, and we have,
which means our marriage is almost old enough to drink. In July.
That means we can have double portions during our anniversary week, which is just going to be you and I at home, which we'll get into that later.
Nice.
We've been married almost 21 years. We have three really lovely boys who are they're great kids. I'm the teaching pastor at Fellowship Denver. We started fellowship, planted fellowship 16 years ago, Renee, mm-hmm. with Hunter Beaumont and a couple of friends. And I've been a pastor for 16 years. Personally, I'm an assistant or associate faculty of New Testament at Denver Seminary. So just an adjunct professor for the past 10 years in various areas of New Testament theology. And Renee and I went to seminary together at Dallas Theological back in the day.
With Hunter.
Yep, with Hunter. One of the first people I met in my intro to theology class was HB. He was getting in fights with the professor. It was great.
Nothing's changed.
Yes. And something important that you at home know about us is that I actually stole Renee from a regionally famous basketball player. And I stole her from him, and she started dating me instead. So that was about 25 years ago.
A little bit about me. I worked clinically as an occupational therapist for almost 20 years and juggle sort of the CEO of Moreland Inc. role at home.
Not sort of. You are the CEO.
And in the last couple of years, I've started a small business that we'll see on the front end of it. But I feel like we've learned some hard lessons over the years that I think we could be helpful in this space, hopefully,
Yeah.
for people who want to listen the next couple weeks.
Yeah. And when that business takes off, I'll be more than happy to be a stay-at-home husband for you. And I'll work out all the time. And
random.
you'll just come home to a happy husband. So I'm really hoping that business takes off.
Oh, and we have some funny, we share an anniversary with some celebrity couples, which is kind of fun.
That's right. Same day that we got married.
Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston got married the exact same day.
Yes. And
Princess Diana and Prince Charles, same day. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what the trajectory of that is for us, but interesting.
Yeah.
A little tidbit. Oh, and Michelle and Ethan Sanders,
Oh.
the famous couple,
That's right. Locally, regionally famous couple.
share our anniversary.
Yep. It's a good
day.
It's a good day to get married.
It is.
But not always mean that you're going to stay married. Poor Brad and Jennifer. But sometimes it does mean that. So
Yeah, and I think we have, through hard seasons when we've come through out on the other side in our marriage, have really experienced some joy and peace, and we all have had a really hard season. And marriage is hard in general, but then compounding that with the pandemic and often job loss or all the other things that have transpired, we're hopeful for all of you that the season after can be a season of real growth and joy and flourishing. So that's our motivation going in.
So this podcast is dedicated to helping couples stay married. During the pandemic, we watched every Jim Gaffigan stand-up routine, and he often talked about marriage.
Yeah, we found ourselves at the beginning just grasping for something that made us smile and laugh, and we had really never listened to Jim Gaffigan, so we started binging his comedy shows. And in one episode, he was talking about his relationship with his wife and made the offhanded comment that she couldn't leave him because he's Catholic and there's no quit in the home team. And we just died at that phrase and resonated with it at some level, like there's no quit in the home team. And so temporarily, that's what we're calling this podcast.
That's right.
But we're open to suggestions because I do think it's a little long. And I don't know, I'm not sold on it. So if anyone out there has name suggestions, Dave at fellowshipdenver.org, Renee at fellowshipdenver.org. Send us your ex.
We'd love to hear your ideas. So what's this podcast going to be about? The beginning of each one of these podcasts will be Renee and I just having honest dialogue about stuff we're going through. And it's not going to be scripted. It's just going to be an open, honest, raw, unscripted conversation about how we're doing in the moment. So let's start off, Renee.
Me?
How are we doing? How are you doing? Do you like me right now?
I do.
Really?
We just returned from a 2-week road trip to Northern California. And so returning from vacation always promotes an optimistic attitude toward things.
Yes.
So I feel like
Sometimes
sometimes this vacation, let me say,
last year's,
last year's was not the same scenario. You're right.
No.
You're right. But I think this year's we had a great vacation. We had a great time connecting. We had a lot of rest. We drank wine in Northern California. So that was the catapult for my week. I would say I like you. Neither of us can sleep right now. I blame being in our 40s. But we go all day, we get up early, we exercise, and then we watch our show, which right now is Lupin, and if you're not watching it, you should. And we turn the light off late, and we can't sleep. So that's kind of a bummer.
yeah, I don't know. I've never been
You've never been a non-sleeper.
a non-sleeper, and yet for the past couple of years, it's been intermittent. And like last night, for example, I probably got 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, I don't know.
Max.
I think that has a cumulative effect eventually on, but right now we're just happy and not sleeping because we're running on vacation fumes.
Yes.
So that's that. I am a sports lover. We both are. And so I absolutely love the Olympics. I love track and field. I ran track. And it's just a binge fest right now if you like sports. And we splurged for the $5.99 a month for Peacock Plus. Woohoo! So this week it has been just a binge fest with track and field, swimming, gymnastics starts, the NBA finals, Eastern and Western Conference finals. So that's been really fun for me, I have to admit. Yeah, so I feel on a scale of 1 to 10, we're at a strong 7.5.
7.5. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that.
How are you?
I am likewise feeling the benefit of rest and vacation. Rest in the sense of renewal, not necessarily technically being rested in the sense of sleep, but feeling refreshed from spending a lot of time with you and the boys and an ocean with the surfboard. That was a blast. I loved it. And yet, coming back to work this week, feeling a little overwhelmed, and that kind of familiar kind of feeling a little bit stretched with my attention being on a lot of different things all at once, with church, ministry stuff, home. We have guests coming in today. And so feeling a little stretched. Also a wedding this weekend, and I preach on Sunday.
What we really need to tell everyone is the reason we're doing this podcast is we just don't want to pay for therapy this summer.
Oh,
So we're just utilizing this space and all of you to give us a little boost and
help us.
yes,
help
help
us
us
people.
process.
But I feel like overall, I feel really grateful, and grateful for you, Renee, and grateful for our family. And I'm feeling good right now. So that's where we're at.
All
So hopefully next time we have a podcast, our answers will be the same, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, we will transition now. We are going to have a segment every week that we call Surprise Question. And it is where one of us comes prepared to ask the other one a probing question that the other one is unaware of. And they have to answer on the fly. And we'll go back and forth between who asked the question. And today, Dave is asking me the first surprise question. So I'm a little nervous because I'm one who likes to prep. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes off the cuff.
Okay. Now, how I understand this question is that it can be serious or
Right.
it can be kind of not serious.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Fair.
So, because the question I have, I think is important, but maybe not as penetrating a question.
Okay. That's fine.
And it's something I really want to know the answer to, and I'm perplexed by it. So, here we go. Renee, why do you hate Australians?
Well,
What has Australia done to you to make you generally dislike Australians? And our Australian listeners, I'm sure, there's going to be many. They're probably wondering the same thing.
well, I think the question infers a bit of an overstatement. I wouldn't say I hate Australians.
Why do you loathe Australians? Why do Australians?
Let's shift it from Australians to, well, Australia in general.
Okay.
I hate being hot.
Okay.
I hate being hot.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful.
Okay. Australia is hot. And I think, so Dave and I spent a good amount of some time in England when Dave was doing his PhD. And we were specifically in Cambridge outside of London, which is a very international university. And we had friends from all over the world. And we had
Including our Australian
friends.
Air quotes friends. Yep.
And you know how certain accents can be endearing. I think some people love the Southern accent, right? Like they just find that like honey.
Yeah.
And certain accents can be really irritating.
Okay.
And for me, the Australian accent, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. And it has been from the very beginning, and I just cannot listen to it. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
And I'm not going to name names of our Australian friends. So we were having a discussion. We were walking through Cambridge, and we passed a flat that had ornaments adorning the garden. And our friend said, "Look at the yard." And we were like, "What? Look, it's yard." And we were like, she said it 100 times.
Yeah, she did. Yada.
Yada. And finally, I was like, "Spell it. What are you saying?" And it was YARDART.
Yada.
Yard art. And it's just an example of how annoying and irritating the Australian accent is. And it's a flaw. I shouldn't dislike a whole group of people from a country, but it's just where I am right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your honesty. And you can send all of your
I'm
distressing emails and to Renee at fellowshipdenver.org.
I'm sorry. But I do groan anytime I hear someone with an Australian accent.
Okay. Well, thank you for your honesty. And that's just an example of surprise.
Oh, that was an interesting one to start off, honey. But in all honesty, we want this to be encouraging and helpful for you in your marriages. And Dave really is a sage when it comes to helping people navigate tricky relationships. He has some training in conflict resolution and has just counseled hundreds, if not thousands, of couples over the years.
Millions. Billions.
So I really want to tap into that resource in the segment we want to call No But Seriously. So no, but seriously, I want you to kind of mine your treasure trove of wisdom and come up with some of your best pithy recommendations, helpful things that people can go, you know what, I can try that. I can do that. I can do that this week.
Sure. For today,
Teach us, Dave.
today, I think it's good to start off with kind of a basic fact about successful marriages, good marriages, the kinds of marriages that we all hope for, all sort of work towards and desire to have. And that is this, is that even the very best marriages, the very best, if you press into those marriages, they always have 1, 2, 3 unresolved perpetual issues that they haven't solved. In other words, the very best marriages aren't marriages that have solved all their problems. The very best marriages, even until till death do us part. If you press into them, there's probably 1 or 2 really annoying live issues that they never untangle.
I think this idea, once I fully embraced it and understood it, was enormously helpful in our relationship.
Yeah.
Because I do think we're maybe culturally, I don't know where the expectations come from, but we're preloaded with a perfection mindset. Mm-hmm. And I do think, a caveat, I do think it's helpful to always be growing, right? And always be working on things in that trajectory.
Yes.
But when I fully just resigned to that these certain areas probably will not change, there was such freedom.
Yeah.
And such, I think our relationship blossomed when I owned that piece of it. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example.
Please.
Stop me if I'm oversharing. I think we should put an overshare warning on every one of these, because that's probably going to be part of it. I am the planner. I call and make dentist appointments. I get the boys the next size shoe. I plan the vacation. In probably
Meals,
every realm
agenda,
of our relationship, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
I'm the think ahead, either whatever action, make the physical appointment, schedule the orthodontist appointment, all of the things. Think about schools, apply for schools, whatever. And for years, I was just so resentful that I had to do all of that and bear the weight of that, because there is a mental load with having to remember and execute all of that. And I think so it produced a lot of resentment and anger.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know, at the time, I would just know that you were upset with me, but I didn't always know why. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there were always kind of day in, day out sort of reasons why you could have been upset with me. But yeah, no, I had wondered why, especially when we were getting ready for a trip, for example, and just coming off a vacation, that's a good example. Why you seemed particularly irritated with me.
But I think when we started talking about this idea, and I think you actually introduced this idea into our marriage, I don't know how many years ago, it really was freeing to be able to say, Dave's not good at this, and he's never going to be good at this. And he's good at a lot of things, but it's not this one. And I can spend the next, hopefully, 40, 30 years.
That's the wrong way. Well, 40, 50.
I don't think we've got 50, but being angry about it. Or I can just accept it, and I am good at it. And you do the same thing for me. It's just we're so myopic we only see the deficits from our side, right? Because you do the exact same thing with me. But when I feel like there was a pivotal moment when I just shifted, and it's like, I'm not going to have the expectation that he does any of this. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do that for us and our family. And it's okay that he's not good at that. Nobody can be good at everything.
Yeah.
But I think that was a really specific moment that shifted our day-to-day experience reality of shalom, kind of.
Yes.
Of just cohesiveness and peace.
And what that empowered, I mean, that's an example of grace. But there's a biblical experience of grace or gift that that is different than how we often think of grace. Sometimes we think of grace as simply giving someone the benefit of the doubt or giving someone credit where they don't deserve it in a way that just enables dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's another kind of grace, and this is the kind of grace God gives that is unmerited love and acceptance. And it's transformative.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of grace that actually opens up the possibility for change, but change in the way that isn't driven to or motivated by maintaining the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but change in the way that's motivated because you've given me something I didn't deserve. And so I feel accepted, and now I'm kind of opened up to wanting to change, and I'm less secure about the thing that I'm bad about, and so there's less shame there, and now there's actually more opportunity for me to get better. Now I'm still I'll never be strong at planning.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of this isn't to say, well, kind of the way to get your spouse to become the person you really want her to be is give her grace, and then she'll get better at it if you give her grace.
It's releasing it.
It's releasing it.
Mm-hmm.
But in that release, that actually creates an environment and where your spouse over time will be less insecure about that weakness.
Right.
And then growth can actually happen.
Right.
And this is precisely the thing that God does with us in the gospel. Grace meets us where we are, but it doesn't keep us where we are. It is transformative, but it initiates by acceptance, love, and that's really powerful. So for those of you at home listening to this podcast, hoping to get better at marriage and probably desiring that your spouse can change, the most counterintuitive thing you can do is actually know and internalize that there are certain problems in your marriage that probably won't ever get fixed. And for you to move forward and to experience what Genesis calls naked and unashamed relationship, to experience a naked and unashamed relationship will actually be requiring you to provide and extend grace to your spouse. And that's what successful couples who don't quit the home team, who stick it out for the long haul and actually have high degrees of happiness and joy in their marriage, that's the secret sauce. That's what they've discovered.
That's good. So turnabout's fair play. So I've outed you in one of your weaknesses, so bring it.
Okay. So, something that's always been true about you is that whenever we're hosting someone or something, we have a fellowship group or any thing that we're about to do together where other people are involved, I have noticed.
You're going to be so careful in how you say this.
I've noticed. I've observed very carefully over the years that maybe you get a little irritable, and sometimes kind of mean.
It's all true, and in the middle of it, people are coming over in 20 minutes, and Dave wants to sit down and have a heart-to-heart about how we're speaking with one another.
So, I have realized that your default whenever you're stressed, whenever there's anxiety's been introduced into our home ecosystem with people coming in, that your default isn't to be considerate of my feelings, my emotional well-being.
It's accurate.
Rather, what you prioritize is you have an internalized list of things to do. And that is the most important thing. And so over the years, I have actually learned to appreciate that for what it is. And to kind of meet you there and
let it go. Have you let it go?
I have let it go.
Oh, yay.
I've let my expectation go. Now, it will always be my default that in a tense relational situation that we should seek peace relationally. That, hey, are we okay with each other? And I'll always want you to say, David, I love you. I think you're the best in that situation. And you not saying that, I've now learned, is not because you don't think that in your heart of hearts in that moment. That's what I believe. But that what is most important for you in that moment is actually accomplishing these tasks. And so for me to love you is actually to meet you in those tasks. So and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's that's not going to change either. And I don't expect you to have a heart-to-heart with me 15 minutes before guests arrive.
When you really should just be cleaning the toilet. And you should know to clean the toilet when it's dirty. I digress. Let's move on. Let's move on. We also, I think, want to highlight, we talked earlier about how there's sort of this expectation of perfection and relational perfection and cultural pressure for your relationship to look a certain way or be a certain way. And I think there's a lot of, and especially as you get older and have been married, we'll be married 21 years in July 29th, as you all know now. Each couple just has weird, quirky things about them that really we shouldn't root out, but we should celebrate. And I think if we all embrace some of those quirky things about ourselves and our spouses, then maybe hearkening back to the whole acceptance and discussion. But so we're gonna kind of pull the curtain back on our relationship and what's weird about us. So maybe you guys won't feel like something that's weird needs to be fixed or needs to change, but can just be celebrated and laughed at. Okay?
Great.
So
Yes.
here we go. A little background. I'm an introvert, and I'm from a huge family. I had a very social job in healthcare for a long time, so I have decent social skills, but I'm an introvert. So people, even though I love them dearly, are a little scary to me.
Unless you're Australian.
And unless I know you really, really well, people scare me. And I think as an introvert, you learn to navigate environments, but it's the unexpected social environment that can just really throw an introvert off. So for me, if somebody knocks on my door and I am not expecting them, even if it's a neighbor or if it's somebody I know,
Or an old friend.
sometimes I just cannot answer it. I can't because I haven't prepared. I wasn't emotionally in a place where the appropriate preparation happened, and I just can't go to the door. So I sometimes, maybe more than sometimes, will just hide.
Yes.
And from our front porch, you can see very well into really our whole main floor, except the bedrooms. And there have been many instances where there's just strategic hiding
Yes.
from whoever's at the door. And I think Dave used to think it was that I should be able to answer the door every time someone knocks on it. But I retain the right. It's my house. I don't have to answer the door if I don't want to. But anyway, whatever.
So, what's weird about us is that if you knock on our door,
But if I know you're coming, it's okay.
Right.
It's the unexpected.
Right. Then it's going to be me that answers the door
Yeah. Probably
every
not.
time.
Yeah.
Or
Most of the 99.99.
or a child of ours might answer. Or we might not come to the door.
If you're not there.
Yeah, if I'm not there.
Yeah.
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 And that's okay. That's okay. But we've had to, over the years, that has been kind of one of these things where, especially as a ministry couple,
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys.
And-
I'm sorry, everyone out there.
you know, with hospitality and all of that,
Yeah.
it was sort of a thing that was weird about us. Is
Yeah.
that, oh, well, Renee's not going to answer. She loves you.
No,
but she's not going to answer
If
the
I know
door.
they're coming, I'll answer. And also, if you're working on our house in a capacity of like fixing the dishwasher or laying towel in our kitchen, I probably won't come out of my bedroom.
Yeah, you'll hide from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you do know them.
Well, yeah. I think it's the duration of the presence that just I can't handle.
Although the last person we had come in was kind of a handsome man. So I was actually happy that you were hiding in the bedroom.
I did hide from him. He was
Yeah.
there a long time.
I know. I was insecure by his. I was insecure. of
Well,
that
you
guy.
should be.
Yeah, I was.
All right. So that's really weird, but it makes us us
Yes.
in all our weirdness.
All right.
Oh, wait. One more thing I think could be helpful
Oh,
is I think I want to make each week a book recommendation
okay.
for our readers out there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a marriage book per se, but maybe because the one I'm going to recommend today is actually fiction. But a book that somehow, I think as we're doing this, we were talking about this podcast on a road trip recently, and we had just listened to Hamilton for the 8,000th time as a family. Because on a road trip, it's like 3 hours and 50 minutes. It passes some time. So Dave and I were chatting about the podcast, and there's a line in Hamilton in one of the songs that says, "There are moments that you're in too deep. It feels easier to just swim down." And it really struck me like that's what we're trying to help people with. Because I do feel like a lot of people are just swimming down and need to be, we talked about being like buoyed and being supported. So if it's a book that could do that in any form, maybe not with a checklist. Okay. So do you have one today?
Yes, I do. Let me go first.
Go for it.
Okay. So I just finished yesterday a biography of Eugene Peterson called "A Burning in My Bones," and much of that biography is detailing the marriage between Eugene and his wife Jan.
You might
And
tell people who Eugene Peterson
Eugene
is.
Peterson was a pastor of a very small church in Maryland for 30 plus years. Also, famously, was an author and and was the translator of The Message. And that's where most people know him. At the end of his life, he kind of became a spiritual mentor to a lot of kind of famous people, probably Bono being one, and George W. Bush, and just kind of was a spiritual kind of guide to a lot of famous people. But it was a weird space for him because he actually hated the spotlight and lived in a very remote place in Montana and forced people to come visit him there. But really, why I'm recommending this book is because he learned over the course of a lifetime how to love and care for his wife Jan in I think an inspiring way. And the biography also shows that you have to keep working on your marriage, in even a good marriage, at the end of your life as well. that temptations and struggles don't just magically go away
Because you're old.
because you're old. Nope. In some ways, the kind of strength that you need in order to maintain a good relationship, some of that strength even goes away. So in some ways, you're more vulnerable at the tail end of your marriage than in the middle. And the biography details some of that. So it was really sobering for me, and also really sweet to read about a marriage, a life well lived, and a marriage that was ultimately really beautiful. So I recommend A Burning in My Bones.
Tell them what you texted me when you finished it.
I finished it, and I cried for 30 minutes after it was over, and I was in my car at the office in the parking lot, and I couldn't go into the office because I wasn't composed.
Oh.
So it was very touching, and Eugene Peterson dies at the end. And that was really sad for me.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to recommend a fiction book that I think we've read oodles of marriage books with to-dos and lists. And for some reason, story sticks, I think, in your heart sometimes better than your lists of things to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recommend Lila by Marilynne Robinson. Marilynne Robinson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and it's the story of an unconventional marriage that started kind of out of duty and is the most beautiful picture of loving someone who's so different than you, which we all are in that situation. It's just haunting how they love each other despite their incredible socioeconomic, age, and situational differences. So I'll recommend that one.
Beautiful.
And I think if we would love, if there's anything you guys want us to talk about, shoot us questions. If you want specifically Dave to address or us to address conflict or whatever, wherever you are and whatever you're struggling with, we'd love to hear that. Renee at fellowshipdenver.org or Dave at fellowshipdenver.org. Shoot us an email.
Great.
Love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to a summer podcast on marriage.
Maybe called No Quitting the Home Team, or better suggestions. Send us those too.
All right. Until next time. See you guys.
Bye.
And in your presence there is fullness of joy. And at your right hand are pleasures forevermore.
Thanks for listening to the premiere episode of No Quitting the Home Team. And next week, we'll return to finish out our daily Life with God series.